For Crema Media's Polity, I'm Nkandla, political analyst Oprimajiki, joins me to discuss the Nkandla judgment. Why do you say that under the current leadership of the ANC, paradise is being lost and victory is far from certain?
Well, paradise, or the promised land, is a society that was going to be different from apartheid society. A society that would be the antithesis of what apartheid society was. But paradise for me is a society that is even better than that. A society that is qualitatively different from even what has replaced apartheid. In other words, a society that is qualitatively different from the antithesis of apartheid itself. Except, of course, that those who lead us, the organizations that are in power, must in their values, their moral content, their leadership content, be a reflection of this paradise. And increasingly, especially over the past 11 years, I think both the president and his party, the African National Congress, have become increasingly ambivalent towards democratic values. In fact, there are times when I wonder whether this party and its leader are on the same moral universe as the citizens of this country. And it is at such times that I wonder whether paradise is not being lost. Now, to the extent that whatever damage is being done by our leaders to our democracy and to the country is damage that I believe is not going to be irreparable. What gives me hope, therefore, is that if I am correct in thinking that the damage that they are doing is not going to be irreparable, as citizens of this country, we will do the necessary repairs and go back to the path which leads us back to paradise.
Do you think that President Jacob Zuma will ever succumb from the pressure of the people like former Intelligence Minister Ronnie Castriles and other luminaries who have been calling for him to step down?
I think if you compare President Jacob Zuma to Thabo Mbeki, who the ANC removed successfully in September 2008, it was because Thabo Mbeki had lost control over the ANC. President Zuma still has substantial support within the ANC, as a result of which I think it will be very difficult for the ANC to remove him. I'm not even sure that he and his supporters, if such a moment comes, will leave quietly. There is a possibility of some instability when the moment comes when the ANC decides it's time to remove him. But I do believe that the decision to remove him or not to remove him will be based on the same thing. If leaders of the ANC begin to think that the president has become a direct threat to their own interests, that will facilitate his removal. But as long as they do not see him as a direct threat to their personal interests, they will not remove him.
You mentioned that the ANC has split already. Why? Where are the signs?
Well, I think there is a split in values. There is a split in moral content. As far as I say that there is a possibility that the president and those who support him on the one side and the rest of the country on the other are not on the same moral platform. I think it is also the case that inside the ANC you have a similar split between those whose moral content is still aligned to the moral content of the country as a whole, or to the values of our democracy and the values of the country as a whole. Whether these are in the minority or not, we can quibble about that. But there is a group, many of whom support the president, who I think are on the opposite side of this moral divide. As a result of which, at the level of values, and principle, I think the ANC has already split. But I also think the ANC space is a space that is becoming increasingly difficult for those who have an alternative view, for those who have a dissenting view. Now, if that space becomes even more difficult, what is likely to happen is that those who have a dissenting view, who have an alternative view, may not be able to countenance any further the idea of being in the same organization with the president and those who support him. So I do think there is a scenario in which the tensions inside the ANC deepen so much that all of this may end in the ANC splitting for a third time under the watch of President Jacob Zuma.
Do you think the constitutional judgment and what is happening now will have any negative impact at the polls?
Well, I do not think if the ANC suffers some erosion in support in the local government elections, it will be because of the constitutional judgment on its own. The judgment of the Constitutional Court came on top of many other things, many other scandals to which the president has become prone over the years. So I think the perception of those who are of the view that the time has come for the president to go, or even the perception of those voters who may not be able to vote ANC anymore in this local government election, it will not be because of the Constitutional Court judgment on its own. It will be because of an accumulation of scandals and an accumulation of negative perceptions around the president, causing collateral damage to the ANC as a whole.
That was political analyst Aubrey Majigri speaking to Crema Media's Polity about the Nkandla judgment.